Welcome back to Product Data Weekly. This is a short practical podcast where each week we break down one operational issue that slows launches, creates manual work, or quietly limits growth inside product data and e-commerce teams. There's no theory, no hype, just what actually happens inside catalogs. I'm Clare, I am co-founder of SKU Launch and Start With Data, and today you have just me. I've picked a topic that may seem small, but actually at scale is a huge issue for a lot of businesses. So let's say if you were to go to your website and you were to search any random category and you were to count the grey placeholders where images should be, if you've got more than 10%, I guarantee you that your customers are seeing that you have a lot of products on there without imagery. And the effect of this is that they won't buy the products from your website. They will go to another website and they will most probably buy from your competitor. So missing images are actually one data quality problem that is really visible to your customers. So often your customers won't see if there's a missing attribute or there might be a null value in a filter. They won't see that, but it's very clear to them to see a grey placeholder with no image available. And the interesting thing is that images are rarely treated as a data problem. They kind of often will sit in between different departments of marketing, suppliers, and sometimes IT. And it feels like often that nobody actually owns these. That's probably reason number one of why it falls through the cracks. And that could be because a supplier sends a spreadsheet with specs but no images. So what will happen is often then the product will be created, but then the image field still says empty. And then there's this kind of breakdown in the process of then actually following through to get that image. One of the other issues that we see is that the image exists, but it's labeled as, image 1274 or something, and then it's impossible for businesses to match those to SKUs, or it takes forever to match those to SKUs, so it kind of sits in this backlog for a long time. One of the big ones that we see is the right type of imagery that gets sent from suppliers. So let's say the supplier sends a lifestyle shot rather than a product image that needs to be on a white background, or it doesn't fit the right size, or your print catalogue has a specific requirement. So what will again happen is that nobody is producing these images for the correct channel, for the way that it's needed. The product either stalls or it just gets pushed to whatever channel it's going to without the correct imagery. Another one that we will see is products getting updated. So whether it's new packaging, new color, new branding, whatever it happens to be. But then, so instead of showing an out-of-date image, but they still want to range the product on the website, they will just put a no image. So that's often a key one. And then there's platform migration. So the text comes across, but then something's happened with the URLs that it's pointing to an old, CDN that doesn't work. So all of these links, nobody's checked, nobody's following through. So if we think about kind of what that means in terms of impact for your business, it's really clear that product pages without imageries don't do a very good job of converting. It's that simple. So, if you were to take a product page with an image versus one without, hands down, the page with the image will beat it every time. Especially for technical products, I think it's really key that often a buyer actually needs to see these technical products. They need to kind of look and see that, is it the right fitting? Is it the right connector, tools, whatever it happens to be. And if they can't see that, they will go somewhere else. And the chances of them coming back then to your website to then buy it is very unlikely. Trust is a big thing with imagery. So a placeholder says, well, basically says, we don't care enough about this product to give you an image. And that's a big issue. If you want to be a reliable distributor or retailer, you need to give your buyers the information that they need. Visibility, you will get ranked lower. Things like on marketplaces, you will get your listings suppressed if you don't have imagery. Google Shopping, it requires them. And often on your own site, they get buried deep in search or filtered out of recommendations. And so they just become invisible products. You may as well not have them on your website at all. B2B distributors that have really large long tail catalogues, we will see this being an issue that, even up to like 20-30% of their catalogue that doesn't have imagery on the website. So it's not just a small little drop in the ocean. Often it can be like a really big issue. So what can you do about it? You're not going to go out and photograph, your entire catalogue or whatever ones are missing. That's not the goal here. So the goal is to get a usable image on every product page and a process that stops any new products launching without an image. So what can you do? The first is to score it. Do a completeness audit on all of your imagery, so the same way that you might run a text attribute audit. So how many SKUs have at least one image? How many meet your required resolution? You've just got to understand the size of the problem that you're dealing with. Then you might want to look at your approach. So depending on how big the problem is, it might be that you choose your top products and by revenue, and then you go out there and you make sure that you're getting the proper images. So that might be getting manufacturer images or web sourced images, obviously keeping within copyright and competitors and what have you. But then you might deprioritize, and then the long tail only gets a minimum something on every page, which is better than having a grey placeholder. The fixing at the source, so stopping the problem before it comes in, it needs to be really clear that when a supplier submits product data, images are part of that submission. So not as a separate follow-up or not as a separate process outside of your supplier onboarding process. It needs to be done then and there, and that if it's not part of the intake process, then you can't complete that onboarding of the product. And if your intake process doesn't ask for images alongside specs, you're basically guaranteeing gaps from the get-go. So setting a gate, no product goes live without at least one image that meets your minimum spec. The same as you wouldn't publish without a title, that rule will stop this problem growing and keeping on happening. So missing images are the most visible data problem that you've got. So you need to start treating them like a data problem. It's not a marketing problem. This is a data problem, the product data problem that needs to be sorted. So you need to score them, source them, and stop publishing your products without them. If you want any more tips and tricks like this, you can subscribe to productdataweekly.com. Every Thursday, we send out a weekly newsletter with lots of tips and tricks like this. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.